Hi, we've talked a little bit about, we've just started the coordinate plane, and we're going to be talking about reflections on the coordinate plane. What is a reflection? A reflection is the transformation of a figure that flips over a line, either the x-axis or the y-axis. Think about it as a mirror image. When you're looking in the mirror, your reflection is a reflection of yourself. Here we've got a graph that I've put a point on, and it says reflect this over the y-axis. Don't forget, this is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. So what we want to do is we want to reflect this point right here over the y-axis. So we're going to just kind of flip it over there. If I were to flip it over the y-axis, it's almost like I'm taking a piece of paper and folding it on the y-axis, and wherever that point meets is where it's going to meet on this side. So that point would be somewhere over here as a reflection of the point that was given. If I want to reflect something over the x-axis, don't forget this is the x-axis and this is your y. I'm not reflecting over the y anymore, I'm reflecting it over the x-axis, so it's like folding my paper at the x-axis, and it would be somewhere over here in this vicinity. So that's what it would look like as a reflection. Let's take some points and go ahead and just flip them on our First of all, we want to reflect RST V over the y-axis. The first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and let's go ahead and plot these on our coordinate plane. It is +1, +3. We're always going to use our x-axis first, so we go to +1 and go up to +3. And this is going to be our R. S is going to be 5 and 3, so we go all the way to 5 on the x-axis and up 3. This is going to be our S. The T is going to be 5, so we go all the way to the +5 and up 1. This is T, and our V is going to be 1, 1. Okay, if I wanted to connect the dots, I could, and go ahead and make this, it looks like a rectangle, which it is. I can go ahead and do that. In order to reflect it over the y-axis, this is the y-axis, it's almost like as if I were to fold it over and it's going to come over here. Except this time we're going to look and see how far is the R, since we started with that, from the y-axis. It's 1 point over. So I'm going to come right over here and put my R value, my new R, over here. And it will have a little dash over the top. This is called R prime. This is the old R, this is the new R. Instead of calling it my new R, I'm going to say R and R prime. R prime is a notation telling me that this is the new one. I'm going to look at my S value. That is exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like we see right here on the X value, it's 5 away on this very same line. So we're going to come over here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my new S prime. With this V, I'm going to look over here. It's 1 point away from the y-axis, so it's going to be 1 point over here. So this is the new V, or the V prime. And my T is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away on this very same line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the very same line. So this is going to be my new T. And if I were to connect these, you would see that it's still going to be a rectangle, same size, everything. But what I have done is I have taken it and I have flipped it this way. Notice that the two R's, my old R and my new R, are going to be exactly 1 point away from the y-axis from where they started, and so are my V's. My T's are the furthest, and so are my S's away from the y-axis. So let's look at what we just drew and write down what our new points are. If I have for R, my first R was 1 and 3. This one's going to be -1 and +3. So this is going to be -1, +3. For my S, it's going to be -5 and +3. So -5 and a +3. For the T prime, it's going to be -5 and a +1. And for the V prime, it's going to be a -1, 1. I want you to look at these and see if you can see any similarities and any differences in here. You should see that they have the same, it looks like the same numbers, except all the x values have turned into negatives. It's 1 and -1, 5, -5, 5, -5, 1, and -1. So it's the same setup, except now my x values have changed signs. Let's look at another one where we're going to be drawing a CAB or CAB on the coordinate plane. And I have already labeled my graph. And I'm going to look at this and say, okay, I've got C is -5 and 3. So I'm going to start here on the x-axis and go -5 and up 3. So this is C. I'm going to do -2 and 1. So -2, go up 1 is my new A. And I've got -2 and 5, so it's -2. And now I'm going to go all the way up to 5 is going to be my B. As you can tell, when I draw this, it's going to be a triangle, okay? Now, it wants me to reflect the CAB over the x-axis. Instead of the y-axis and flipping it this way, we're going to take it and flip it over the x-axis. Remember how I said like you were closing or folding it on the x-axis is going to be flipped over this way. Notice that the A is 1 unit away from the x-axis, so this A is going to be 1 unit away. So this is going to be A prime because that is my new A, and we call it A prime with a little dash over it. I'm going to look at my B, and I know that that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units up. So this is going to be on the same line, but it's going to be 5 units down, okay? So this is going to be my new B or B prime. And C is exactly 1, 2, 3 away. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 away from the x-axis in the opposite direction. And this is my new C prime. If I draw the lines that connect all of these dots, I can see that the two A's are the closest to the x-axis. The C's are just as far apart from each other. These are 3 apart, this is 3 apart. And the B's are just as far apart from the x-axis. So all I did was take this very triangle and just flip it over. Notice the A's are the closest. So what are going to be my new or my prime C prime is going to be now -5 and -3. My A prime is going to be -2 and -1. And B prime is going to be -2 and -5. If you look at these, you can tell that the x's all stayed the same in my coordinate points. The only thing that changed were my B values, and they stayed the same number. We just used the opposite of each one of them. They were all positive in the first original points. Now they're all negative in the new prime points. So take note of that, because now we're going to see what do you do if you don't have graph paper. If I don't have graph paper, here's the rule of how we do it. When you're reflecting a point over the x-axis, your x values are going to stay the same, and the y values are going to change signs. It's going to have the same number value, but it's going to change signs. When you're reflecting a point over the y-axis, your y values are going to stay the same. Your x values are going to change signs. So for example, let's look at number 1. It says reflect over the x-axis, and this is the part that you need to understand. If I'm reflecting over the x-axis, the x values are going to stay the same. The y values are going to change. So let's take this. I know I've got a -1 in W. In my prime, W prime, I'm going to have a -1. The thing that changes is the sign is going to change with my y value. So this is now going to be -2. I'm going to give you time to write down your new T prime and just see if you get the same answer as I do. I know that I've got -2. It's going to stay the same. This is a -5, so the opposite or the sign is going to be a +5 this time. All right, hope you got the same thing I did. Look at the reflecting over the y-axis. I know when I reflect over the y-axis that my y values are going to stay the same. It's the x values in the front of the coordinate point that are going to change. If this is a positive 3, so if I know the y values are going to stay the same, I'm just going to put a 4 here. I've got a positive 3 here. The opposite of a positive 3 is a negative 3, or the opposite sign is negative. Here I know that I've got a negative 1 for my y value. It's going to stay the same. You decide, is it going to be a positive 1 or negative 1? Well, it says up here that the y values stay the same, the x values change signs. So from a positive, I've got to make that a negative 1. And we're going to be working on these tomorrow. We're going to be working on reflecting it on the graph, but we're also going to be working on how to use it when we don't have graph paper.